Welcome to the 7th video in the Secrets to Drawing video course, brought to you by thevirtualinstructor.com. In this video, we're going to continue to explore ways that you can create the illusion of space on a two-dimensional surface. In this video, we're going to talk about two-point perspective. Two-point perspective is a form of linear perspective that uses lines to create the illusion of space in a drawing. Two-point perspective relies on two vanishing points placed on the horizon line to create this illusion. It's different than one-point perspective that relies on only one vanishing point. Remember, there are 6 different ways to create the illusion of space on a two-dimensional surface. Two-point perspective is one of the 6 ways to create this illusion. We'll begin with two-point perspective in the same way that we began with one-point perspective, by defining the horizon line. Remember, the horizon line is the line that divides the sky from the ground, or it could indicate the viewer's line of sight. Next, we'll place 2 vanishing points on the horizon line. Remember that the horizon line theoretically continues in either direction. You can place the vanishing points anywhere on this horizon line. Just make sure they're spread apart from each other. Now, in two-point perspective, we'll draw the corner of the object that we're drawing. This is different from one-point perspective, in which we drew the general shape of the object that we're drawing. Next, we'll draw 2 lines from each end of that corner to one of the vanishing points. In this case, we'll start with the vanishing point on the left side of the horizon line. Now we'll do the same thing, except to the opposite vanishing point on the right side. So we'll draw 2 more lines, each from the ends of the original corner back to the vanishing point on the right side. Now we'll figure out where our object ends. Since we're drawing a cube here, we'll pick 2 places on either side for our cube to end and draw vertical lines on each side. Then from each ends of those vertical lines, we'll draw lines to the opposite vanishing point. Now all that's left to do is to erase the lines that we no longer need to reveal our cube. You can see the lines that we need to erase. There is one thing to consider though. There are more lines that exist here in the space. These lines are not going to be seen, but it's important for you to understand where they are. These lines will go from each opposite end of the form to the opposite vanishing point. It will give us information about where the corner exists on the back side of our cube. You can see this illustrated here. If we were drawing an object that's transparent or translucent, or if we needed to know information about the other 3 sides, this is how we would find that information. In most cases, however, you'll be using two-point perspective to find information about a solid geometric form like the cube seen here. Now let's take a look at two-point perspective in action. For this exercise, you'll need a ruler, you'll need an HB graphite pencil or a number 2 pencil. Softer graphite pencils are fine, but might be harder to erase, and you'll also need an eraser. We'll begin by drawing a horizon line and placing 2 vanishing points on the horizon line. Remember, these vanishing points can be placed outside of the picture plane as long as they're on the horizon line. Next, we'll draw the corner of the object, and then we'll draw 2 lines from each end of the corner to one of the vanishing points. We'll repeat this process on the other side to the other vanishing point. 2 lines from each end of the original corner to the vanishing point. Now we just need to figure out where our object ends. And we'll draw 2 vertical lines on each side of our original corner to indicate this. Now we'll draw lines from each end of those 2 lines to the opposite vanishing point to complete the top of our cube. Now remember, more lines exist here. I'll draw them lightly so you'll understand where they are. We won't see these lines, however, since the cube that we're drawing is going to be a solid one. Now we can erase the lines we no longer need to reveal our three-dimensional cube in space. Now let's draw another cube that exists behind this one. Again, we'll start with the corner. We'll use the same two vanishing points that we used previously, drawing two lines from each end of our original corner to one of the vanishing points. Then we'll repeat the process for the other side. Next, we'll figure out where this cube ends on both sides. Since we won't see the top of this cube because of our line of perspective, it's okay if we don't draw the other two lines. We can go ahead and erase the lines that we don't need anymore at this point. Next, let's draw another cube that exists on the other side of our original corner. Again, we'll start by drawing the corner of the object, then lines from each end of that corner to each of the vanishing points. Next, we'll figure out where this object ends, and draw vertical lines on each side of our original corner to indicate this. We can now erase the lines that we no longer need to reveal our next cube. Now let's start to turn this into a believable scene. We'll add a couple roads. We'll only use one of the vanishing points to indicate this first road. Then we'll use the opposite vanishing point to indicate the second road. In this case, we're going to create the illusion of an intersection. We can draw the corner here to indicate a curb, and then lines back to the other vanishing point to indicate the bottom portion of the curb. Now let's add a sidewalk on the other side of the road. We'll draw another line to one of the vanishing points. Then we'll draw more lines to the opposite vanishing point to indicate the breaks in the sidewalk. Let's say there's a building that exists here in the foreground. Watch what happens when using two-point perspective. We'll start with a corner, but it wouldn't really make sense to do things the way we've done. The buildings wouldn't look realistic. So instead, we'll go to the opposite vanishing point out the opposite end of the corner to create the rest of the building. This means we'll no longer see any of the lines inside of this form, so we can go ahead and erase them. Now, one of the objects I erased was the vanishing point. It's important to keep in mind where it is, so I'll return it. Now let's add some windows to the building. First, we're going to draw two lines to the vanishing point on the left side. Then we're going to draw a series of vertical lines to indicate where the windows end and the next window begins. I'll add a bit of value inside of these shapes to create the illusion of the windows. Next, I'll do the same thing on the opposite side. Again, two lines to the opposite vanishing point this time. Then vertical lines to indicate the windows, and a bit of value to create contrast. Now let's add a door to this side of the building. Again, we'll go to the vanishing point that matches this side of the building. Then we'll draw 2 vertical lines to indicate where the doorway begins. To create a recess, we'll go to the opposite vanishing point and then add a vertical line, then back to our original vanishing point. To finish off the illusion of a recess here, we'll add a little bit of value to create some contrast. Now let's add another road to add to the realism. Again, we'll go to our vanishing point on the left side. Where the road connects, we can put a vertical line to indicate the curb, and then another line to our vanishing point to indicate the bottom of the curb. We'll continue the curb in the foreground as well. And just to create more depth, we'll add a mountain range in the background. So what did we learn in this video? Well, first we learned that 2-point perspective is a form of linear perspective that uses lines to create the illusion of space. Remember that 2-point perspective uses 2 vanishing points, unlike 1-point perspective. In fact, an artist should either use 1-point, 2-point, or 3-point perspective. Never mix methods. In the next video, we'll take a look at the third way to create linear perspective, 3-point perspective.